interviewing Bill Drury for the District 1 for County Commissioner. And Bill, hi. Why is it that you're wanting to run for County Commissioner?
Well, my biggest concern has been I joke that I defected from the People's Republic of New Jersey. I moved out here. I love it out here, and I don't want to see what destroyed New Jersey come here. So I'm always concerned about making sure that when you see these great ideas, that I've heard some of these great ideas and they did the wrong thing to where I live. So I'm always like, no, we got to keep what makes Oneida County. Can't keep. We don't want that coming in, changing our basic, flavor of what this county is about. So that's kind of my overriding why I want to do it. I just think also that there's a point in time now where, I've heard so many people say, well, I'm just told no, or I'm not given an explanation. And I really feel that as a county commissioner, one of the things that you need to do is articulate why things are happening. Now, people may disagree with why they're happening, and that's okay too. Well, if you disagree with it, well, then let's talk about how we can change it, or can we change it? Sometimes federal state law prohibits. We can argue about that all day long. But the problem is that the law of supremacy, we're kind of stuck with what they said to do. That being said, though, sometimes you can work around it. So if people are happy, there's no reason to change anything. If people are not happy, then articulation helps people understand why decisions were made, why we got to where we're at, and maybe then we can say, no, we need to change it, we need to move forward in a better way. We know that growth is coming, and that's good and bad. Great, we have growth, which means that your tax base is going to expand. You're going to be able to do some more things in your community because you'll have more economic activity. That's wonderful. But there's some other downsides to that too. I mean, you put it back that now you're going to have stresses to your infrastructure. Roads, police, fire, all that gets taxed a bit more. And then you're looking at the fact that then who's coming in? And I'm not just saying we're going to ban certain people, but just from people that come here, understand you're moving into an agricultural county. So at 3 a.m, somebody is going to be cutting hay. Just understand that that's going to happen. Buy an eye pillow and deal with it. Cows get moved the old-fashioned way around here. It's just the way it is. You move into the county, understand that. Does that mean we don't stop growth? We tell people they can't move in? No, we're just asking them to understand how we live here. And so those are the things that I'm kind of overriding things that I'm more concerned about at this point. Just making sure we don't lose the county's culture, flavor. At the same token, understand people want to move in here. Why would they? It's a great place to live. So,
with growth, you don't need more people moving in for there to be economic growth.
Right.
People can create their own businesses,
right,
employ people from those businesses.
Right.
But there's certain restrictions because of regulation. What would you do as county commissioner to balance that?
This is where we need to have the discussion. This is where, as county commissioner, you need to go to business people saying, what's holding you back? What's making it difficult for you to operate? At the same token, understand that if we do have a business move in, what pressures are you going to put on the infrastructure? Are roads going to need to be built? What's going to happen with the water? I mean, we found out recently here in the city of Milan that the water system here is kind of old. It needs some upgrading. And so a lot of money is going to be spent now to do some major upgrades to the water system. Great. Well, somebody wants to come in and they want to do things. You're going to have to participate in helping the water system get up to snuff. Maybe you don't have to buy the whole, I'm not saying they have to do for the whole city, but the area you're building in, the area you're doing, you're going to need to participate in that infrastructure upgrade to make it work. Most places in the world that happens. Everybody knows that. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to put in the lines for the water. If I'm doing this, I'm going to have to put in the lines for the sewer. We just have to make sure that it's understood up front. Does that mean we try to, one of the problems we had in New Jersey, every time a new business came in, ooh, money for us to grab. No, we don't want that because then the businesses run away. You say, this is our tax base, this is this is what it's gonna cost to do business in our county. But we're not gonna come back to you just because you're business. So you want to promote business, but you want to give them stability. This is what our tax base is, this is what we require from you, and that's all. And they can make decisions from there. Most businesses I've ever dealt with, they like stability. They like, are these the rules? Are these rules being followed? Then work for it.
There have been some people that feel there's a little bit of a two-tier form of justice, specifically with planning and zoning.
Right.
If people, as part of planning and zoning like you, you'll get things moved through a little bit quicker. If they don't, then all of a sudden there's all sorts of red tape, and we'll have to talk to the engineer, and, oh, you did what the engineer said, but now we need to do something else, and let's talk to the engineer again. And all of a sudden, thousands upon thousands of dollars are spent, and you're still not able to get your project done.
Right.
What can be alleviated by that?
I think, once again, as a commissioner, if somebody can come to us and say, hey, look, we're getting the runaround. And the commissioner needs to step in at that point and say, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? Why are all these things happening? And, at the end of the day, the commissioners they run the county. Planning and zoning answers to the commissioners. And at that point, you'll have to say, hey, guys, we got to move forward. You can't keep doing this to somebody. Once again, the law needs to be applied equally across the board. If the code says no, it means no. And the code says yes, it means yes. You can't say, well, for this reason, we want it to say no. Does the code say yes? Then it has to be a yes. And if the code says no, it's a no. Now, does that upset people? Maybe it does. But then when we say, well, do we need to change the code? Does the comprehensive plan need to be reviewed in this area? And that's what we do. That's what, as a commissioner, you're supposed to do. You're supposed to say, look, is it working for the people? And if it's not, we need to make adjustments so it does work for the people. And vice versa. Is it harming the people? Then we need to make adjustments so it doesn't harm the people anymore. But you're an elected official. You've been elected by the people, and your job is to serve. You're a leader servant, but we're a servant leader. Your job is to serve. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I retire this month, next month. By the time comes, if I win the election, come January, I got one job, and that's to be a commissioner. So, do I have to drive up the stone to find out what's going on? I'll get in my car and drive up the stone. But I think it's necessary to talk to people and not just simply say, well, there's nothing we can do. Well, there is something we can do. And maybe sometimes the answer still is no. Mm-hmm. But at least you've articulated why, you've made it clear what's happening. If somebody says, well, I don't like it, then tell them how they can change it. And be honest about it. You need to come here, you need to make this motion, and go on from there.
So you said you'd be a leader servant of the people.
Right.
Are you familiar?
More servant leader, but let's yeah, right.
Are you familiar with what FISA 702 is? It's a thing that Obama did a few years ago. That was warrantless searches, right, of individuals, and they're trying to renew it right now. It's getting a little bit of pushback by Congress, thankfully. But if that does continue on, as a county commissioner, you are our servant/leader. What could you do to protect us from those warrantless searches by the state or the feds?
A lot of that's going to be hard to do, but once again, we have a sheriff. And sheriffs are the highest form of law enforcement in the county. And so that's where you would work with the sheriff. We really wanted to have this go on, because, why? I think somewhere along the line it's going to get challenged at the Supreme Court. Some of this stuff has happened in the Supreme Court. And the question comes down to, how far can you push this before, this new thing with the disconnect switches that's supposed to be in cars, disconnect switches, right? That's already being pushed on. Because who gives you the right? Just what decisions were made? Who gets to make that decision? And that's why the warrants were. That's why our basically our Bill of Rights and the Constitution were like, hey, you have rights that somebody just can't necessarily say go ahead and do it. The whole warrant system was, hey, supposedly a, somebody who's not, independent looks at this situation and goes, no, not really, or sits there and says, oh, you have a really good case, proceed forward. So I'm surprised judges let that go on. Because if I was a judge, like, you're taking over my, this is my jurisdiction. I say whether to go or not. You can't bypass me. How dare you?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So,
But back to what a commissioner can do. Commissioners are, constitutionally, it's a position that's in the Constitution of the state. You have constitutional authority. So when you can go to Boise and you can sit there and say, hey, excuse me, but this law isn't working for us. And surprisingly, I've noticed when you do go to Boise and somebody says, I'm a commissioner, how senators and representatives step back a little bit and go, okay, come into my office, let's talk. So you do have authority where you can kind of help move, and I think the same thing can happen with the judge. You say, hey, I'm a county commissioner, I have a problem here. Why is this happening? So, but that means you're being a servant at that point. You are taking time out of your schedule, your day, to go to people and say, we have a problem, or explain to me why this is happening. And so I have no problem with doing that. And does that mean that certain senators and representatives might get tired of seeing my face or hearing my voice? Oh, well, because you're servant leaders too, guys. You're here to serve the people. So, and I think sometimes the people I have talked to, some of the representatives, hey, it's nice to know you're closer to the people than we are. So when you come up and talk to us, you're really there. You've gotten yelled at by a farmer. You've gotten yelled at by people who are dealing with water issues. So now we'll have a better idea of what's going on. So
yeah. So as you go to Boise, there'll be a training for county commissioners.
Right.
Quite often, candidates or newly elected people, whether it's county commissioner or Congress, they're told what their job or what they should do rather than what their constitutionally mandated responsibilities are. And it's a go along to get along kind of a situation. How would you push back against that culture?
The answer is no. What does the Constitution say I'm supposed to do? What do the people who elected me want me to do? It's not about, what they call lobbyists, like consultants now in the state. They're not consultants, they're lobbyists. They're lobbyists. Do I have a problem with a lobbyist coming in and helping, look, this is what my people want. Okay, and then somebody else has another lobbyist come in and say, this is what my people want. They're not consultants. They're just letting you know what a group of people want. Okay, fine. Thank you for talking now. We can move on now.
Yeah.
That being said, you're still the servant of people. You're there for the people who elected you. My joke has always been now since I've been knocking on doors, there's 5,000 people in this county and 10,000 ways to run it. But still, I mean, you get a quick picture of where the heartbeat of the county is, what people want. You don't have to be a genius to figure this out. Talk to enough people and you get where, nobody in this county wants unbridled growth. They don't want to see what happened in Canyon and Native. They don't want any of that. On the other hand, they don't want nothing either. So there's something in the middle. Well, you've heard that now. So when, well, you should do this in your county. Well, that's not what people want. That's not what the people who elected me want. So we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And so, once again, the position of commissioner is a constitutionally set up position. There's no state law that said. There's no federal law. It's in the Constitution. So act like it.
So I've heard that there's a problem with specifically sheriff's deputies leaving, but it's just in general, county employees don't feel like they're getting the compensation they would prefer. What is as a county commissioner you could do? One, to take care of their needs because they should be compensated fairly. But also, that's money from the tax base. How can you level that?
Well, we just had talks about using grant money, to help. Now, in many cases, grant money cannot pay salaries, but if grant money can be used to buy other things and do other things, that frees up tax money for salaries, it frees up money for, and really need to have a talk about benefits. It is unfortunate that we only afford benefits for the employee and not for the family.
Mhm.
And one of the things as a county commissioner is I will be, talking to insurance companies, all of them. What, how can we make this work for our families? It just doesn't seem right that we cannot afford to at least, we have a person working for the county and they get insurance, but they still have, they have a spouse, they have kids. We got to do something for that. In terms of the sheriff's department in general, I know that compensation is the number one problem right now. We have younger officers. Some of them don't have families, some of them do, but money is a big thing for them. So we need to sit down and you don't want to raise property taxes, but you may have to say we have to move things around. This thing that we've been funding may not get as much funding because we need to direct that towards the sheriffs.
Wants versus needs.
Wants versus needs, right?
We need the sheriff.
Right. We need a sheriff's department. We want that. Well, I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to do that now. Sheriff's going to need to get it. The other, so we have that. The other problem is, once again, we talk about growth. Many of our sheriffs need housing, and we need to have a certain amount of growth that's going to allow affordable housing, so that they can, be able to buy a home, live in the county. Now we have a comprehensive plan, and there's talks about where things can grow and things cannot grow. Well, affordable housing can be in that comprehensive, impact area. Say, look, this is where we could build affordable housing. It's going to be easier to put sewer, water into these areas. We can do things here. Great, that's fantastic. When we talk about going further out, we have some other issues to deal with, but we should be thinking about how we can make things a little bit more affordable.
With that, when there's a lot of alternative building options.
Right.
Earthships
Right.
and all sorts of different
Right.
things, but a lot of that might not fit Idaho code.
Right.
What could you do as a county commissioner to, one, make affordable housing more accessible through potential alternative building methods, while also following the laws?
Well, once again, that's where, I have kind of the problem I have with developers is that they are, all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail. And a lot of developers, they just say, oh, build, 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 build. Well, guys, that's not always a great idea either. So, but you can talk to people who are in building and who do these things for a living. Engineers, bring them in. What can we do? How can we build more affordable housing? What stays within the Idaho code, at the same token, allows us to lower the price of homes or get things a little bit more affordable for young people. I lived in the state of New Jersey, very expensive place, but my first home was a 3-bedroom rancher. That was only 1,100 feet, but 3-bedroom rancher, I mean, $69,000. If you just take flat old inflation, that home's $150,000. That is an affordable home. And a 3-bedroom rancher at 1,100 square feet is a pretty nice home.
It's a great start.
It's a great start home. So can we develop something like that here in the county? Now, it won't be out, in stone. It won't be out in St. John's. It will be here in the city. There's ways we can do that and not, dramatically alter, the flavor and spirit of the county. And these are the things we have to talk about. And I'm willing to have every discussion. Like I said, after May, I got one job.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. Well, I don't want to take too much of your time. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
once again, I know, and I'm not saying this as a dig to my opponents. A lot of people are from the land. They've lived here their whole lives. And I just want people to understand how much I enjoy and love this county. And, even though I'm a short timer, my heart is here. I've been out knocking on doors. I've been talking to different people, and I love this county even more. It's like, wow, I didn't know these people existed, and they're so much fun, and they're so great to talk to. So I really want this county to thrive and survive. Or survive and thrive, either one. But I want to make sure we do it in a way that makes sense. That we just don't build for the sake of building, And we don't stop growth because, oh, well, that might do something. We need to have discussions of how this is going to work. You know, if somebody wants to build something way out in the middle of nowhere, good, but you then will need to understand, you now built on a road that has no winter maintenance. You're gonna have to deal with that. And if you're willing to deal with that, if you're willing to understand, you know, hey, I'm willing to take these risks, or I'm willing to take these responsibilities, welcome to Oneida County. You know, on the other hand, if you come in here and you want us to start building roads and stuff like that, you know, it's not gonna happen. But we do have a development plan that hopefully we can use that to help maybe make more affordable housing, or, you know, help things develop a little bit better. And hopefully we can do that in a wise, managed way that, once again, we don't go stupid. Like I said, I just read somewhere up there in the Boise area, they now are having problems selling all the homes that they just built. Do we want to be there? You know, we just need to be wise about what we do, and that's all. That would be my overall. Let's be wise. All right. Thank you. And is that on you?